You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. When Jaden Daniels committed to LSU, a short time after that, ESPN.com did a list or a ranking. And you know how we feel about rankings over here.
And now it's time for Feigned Indignance from sports talk radio guy over random summertime sports lists.
Although that was actually in the spring. But anyway, ESPN did a list where they ranked college football's top 25 future quarterback ranking. So they looked at who was currently on the roster, committed players for the future, and they put together what they thought would be the top 25 quarterback rooms over the next 3 years. And they were not actually very kind to LSU. And remember, that included Jaden Daniels at the time. They ranked LSU 16. So despite the fact that you had Jaden Daniels this year and Miles Brennan in the future with Nussmeier and Walker Howard, they ranked LSU 16. Again, it's just a list. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just interesting to gauge different perspectives or the perception that people may have that cover the sport of LSU's quarterbacks. Like Ohio State was number one on that list. USC, bring in Lincoln Riley, obviously. Alabama was 3. Texas A&M, for example, despite the fact that you just had Zach Calzada and you brought in Max Johnson. But betting on the come there with Jimbo, Georgia was 5. So it kind of gives you some perspective. They had LSU down the list a bit, which is why this was interesting to me. By the way, as far as the summertime sports lists thing, CBS Sports just has the market cornered. Have you looked at CBS Sports college football page? Every day, it's just a different list. The season's ranking the biggest revenge games, ranking each week's chaos potential. What does that even mean? You're going to rank the week's chaos potential? Like, I haven't looked at it. I mean, are they legitimately just going like week 6, week 12, week 1? Anyway, and then they did a ranking by position. But the reason it was interesting is they ranked the best quarterback rooms for this coming season. And they have LSU 5th in the country on this list. It's Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, and then LSU. Surprising to me. Because think of who isn't on the list that I just mentioned. Clemson's not on that list. Ole Miss, which pulled Jackson Dart out of the transfer portal from Southern Cal, they're not on that list. Despite Lane Kiffin, his ability to bring in quarterbacks, mold them, develop them, get massive production like he did both at Alabama and now at Ole Miss. Texas A&M's not on that list. Remember, A&M was top 5 on the ESPN list 3 months ago. They got LSU 5th on that list. And the more I look at it, the more, to me anyway, it makes a lot of sense. You'll consider this. And this is why I think the closer people look at LSU's quarterback position for this year, the more favorable people are going to be when they start describing it, the closer we get to the season. The CBS Sports write-up, it talks about Jaden Daniels, Brennan Nussmeier, Howard. Don't have a proven starter after losing Max Johnson, but the collection ranks among the deepest in the nation. Talk about Jaden Daniels, who's thrown for, put up 3,000 yards of total offense. Brennan's a 6th-year guy. The talent of Nussmeier and Walker Howard, guys that could compete for playing time right away. You understand. But I think the part of this that really benefits LSU this season in college football is if I look at the teams ranked ahead of him on this list, while they may have a more proven number 1, there's a giant question of what happens if number 1 goes down. Like, Alabama's number 1 on this list for good reason. Bryce Young had an historic season, won the Heisman, Bama got to their second consecutive national championship game. Of course, they lost to Georgia, but it's hard to argue against the returning Heisman Trophy winner, right? Well, after Bryce Young is Jalen Milroe. Played 4 games a year ago, has 7 career passing attempts. That's Bama's backup. And maybe he's just the next in line, a long line of studs that are just going to crush it, but he's got 7 career passing attempts. Ohio State, C.J. Stroud is their starter. No surprise there. Their backup is Kyle McCord, who played in 5 games and is a career 25 of 38 passing. 38 career passing attempts. That's their backup at Ohio State. Number 3 on the list is Michigan. Cade McNamara, returning starter, was really good a year ago. Michigan went to the Orange Bowl. They were in the playoff. You know the story. Their backup is J.J. McCarthy. He's a true freshman, hasn't played. Georgia, 4th on the list. Stetson Bennett returns. Guy was the quarterback of the national championship team. Beat out J.T. Daniels. Sent him packing to Pitt. We all know the story. Or to West Virginia. Backup is Carson Beck. 5 career passing attempts. Y'all, so that means when you look at LSU, if you assume Brennan, Daniels, Brennan, whatever order, if Daniels wins the job, your backup is a 6th-year player in Miles Brennan. If Brennan wins the job, your backup is a dude that started 30 career games in the Power 5. None of the teams on this list. And then you've got Nussmeier, who played in 4 games a year ago, and then the really talented blue chip kid in Walker Howard. So all of those other programs have their version of Nussmeier Howard, the young guy that's dabbled but hasn't played a ton, and then the freshman coming in who's the blue chip. None of the ones I mentioned have the combo of Daniels, Brennan, Daniels, 2 guys that have played a bunch. At least none on this list that CBS put forth, which I'll keep going back to this, and my hope is, y'all, and I'm sure you all feel the same way, whoever ultimately wins a starting job for LSU, I don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be Brennan or Daniels or Nussmeier. They're going to redshirt Walker Howard. I think we know that. The last 2 years, each of the last 2 years, LSU has started 3 different quarterbacks. In 2020, Brennan was injured, and then we saw both freshmen that year, Finley and Johnson. And then last year, we saw 3 different quarterbacks play significantly as well. So my hope is, and this is where I get to the point where I'm sure you agree, that whoever wins the job that's the best player just stays healthy and has a great year. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. But as we've seen, it usually doesn't work out that way. Like 2019 with Joe Burrow just being the dude, that's an outlier. More often than not, we've seen LSU have to go to multiple quarterbacks, and that's the reality with most college football programs at some point during the season. And you could look at the transfer culture, and a big part of the transfer culture is because of injuries. I just mentioned JT Daniels. He was a starter at USC as a freshman, and the reason he's not there anymore is he got hurt and lost his job. And the guy he lost his job to, Keaton Slovis, got hurt, and now he's transferred as well. And the next guy in was Jackson Dart. Now he's transferred to Ole Miss. I mean, that's 3 quarterbacks from one school at Southern Cal that have all transferred out. I mean, it's a great lesson as to why you have to keep stockpiling that position, but it's also a reminder of how hard it is to build depth and why having depth at that position matters so much. I got asked this question this morning. It's like, do you worry if you're LSU, you got Walker Howard, you keep going and trying to recruit all these blue chip quarterbacks, do guys leave? Well, no, you don't worry about that. It's why you continue to go keep recruiting blue chip quarterbacks. Look what happened to Georgia, where you had Jacob Eason, who was a 5-star, and then you recruit Jake Fromm behind him. You had Justin Fields as well. Remember, you went boom, boom, boom. I mean, Fields left for Ohio State. Eason got hurt, lost the job to Fromm. He goes back home to Washington. You understand the point. Like, you can't take for granted that someone's just going to be there and wait and be next in line. LSU just kind of has that unique luxury right now, or that rare luxury, I should say, because Miles Brennan is willing to come back for his 6th year. So you could certainly argue, and I would, that Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud or Cade McNamara or Stetson Bennett, any of those guys, is more accomplished, better, talented, higher ceiling, whatever, than LSU's top two, Daniels and Brennan. What's undeniable is that LSU's top two are more experienced than anybody else's top two. So if you have to go into your depth at quarterback, you feel pretty good about it at LSU, which is not something that we can often say. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.